I don't know.
No, it was a mistaken identity thing because I became obsessed with figuring out what it was, and I went through our archives, and no such thing exists. So it must have been a mistaken identity. And maybe there is a Cenk Uyghur out there somewhere who did attack you.
Yeah. I want to apologize for that because I think I must have been temporarily insane or something. That had to be. No, that's normal. What I'm going with.
Yeah. No, don't sweat it. Mistaken identity, no big deal. Okay, let's get to serious stuff. So look, John, the main thing that I've been wanting to ask you for a long time is, do we even have a CIA? So what I mean by that is, the CIA seems to let Israel run wild inside this country. And so espionage to no end, stole our nuclear secrets, our uranium, our nuclear triggers, all of our top secrets. And yet we're like, oh, they're our best allies. And we let them run. And in fact, one more, Epstein was part of Iran-Contra. And so it's not like the CIA is not aware of what's happening here. And so does it exist, or is it just simply the Mossad?
It's changed a lot over the years in that when I first joined the CIA, we did not like the Israelis at all. They were spying on us. They made it clear. They openly spied on us. They would bring us gifts that had listening devices embedded in them to the point where they were not allowed in the building. We had to rent space to do our liaison meetings with them because they just simply were not permitted to come into the headquarters building. Well, that was 35 years ago. And now all of a sudden they're being like embedded with the CIA, that there's a provision in the National Defense Authorization Act for 2027 that co-locates them with the Pentagon and then allows even closer, like Five Eyes style liaison with the CIA. And then at the same time, just 2 weeks ago, NBC News reported that the director of DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, had to send out an all hands email saying that the Israelis are being unusually aggressive right now in trying to recruit assets inside DIA, that all DIA employees need to be extra careful. So what are we doing here? Either the Israelis are ranked as critical threat for counterintelligence, which is what they were when I was there, along with the Russians, the Chinese, the Cubans, and the North Koreans, or we're joined at the hip. But it can't be both.
So here's my follow-up question for you on everything that you just said. What changed? Is it blackmail? Like, how did our government, and not just the CIA, how did our government go from understanding the risks of being associated with the Israelis, understanding that they spy on us, understanding that while we may say that they're our allies, in reality, they act like they're our adversaries. So what changed? Do they have dirt on powerful people in our government? Or I'm asking you to speculate, or maybe you know something we don't know. Yeah.
No, they probably do, but I think it's broader and more nefarious than that. In that this is really a political change. Any Arab leader will tell you, and many have told me, or I've been in the room when they've told the American ambassador, the last American president to give the Arabs a fair shake was George H.W. Bush. The last one. They loved George H.W. Bush, they loved Kennedy, and they loved Eisenhower. And everybody else has been a Zionist in terms of policy. Well, we've had a string of Zionist presidents, and they just the Israelis keep chipping away little by little by little, not just in the White House, but on Capitol Hill through AIPAC. And they've gotten us to the point where if you disagree, not just with Israeli policy, if you disagree with Benjamin Netanyahu as a person, you are labeled as anti-Semitic.
Of course.
It took them decades to get to that point, but they did it.
Yeah, so John, more follow-ups here. So first of all, on your point about disagreeing with Netanyahu, only a third of Jewish Americans agree with Netanyahu, 2/3 are against him. So apparently 2/3 of Jews in America are anti-Semitic by this ludicrous definition, ludicrous. And it's obvious.
May I add something to that?
Yeah.
Because of the party system in Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu has never won more than 27% of the vote in Israel. So are we supposed to assume then that 73% of Israelis are anti-Semitic?
Yeah.
It's outrageous.
Yes, and I could list other historic leaders that did not win a majority, but won around that number and then went on to do great damage. Okay, now our press, I believe, is mainly Israeli propaganda. Why do I say that? Because they keep telling us that things are normal. So I just want to do a quick checklist with you to see if these things are normal. So they keep saying, oh, our allies doing espionage to the point where they are stealing our most sensitive technology and intelligence and using it to build weapons of mass destruction and doing it over and over and over again is perfectly normal. Is that really normal?
No, of course not. And if it was any other country in the world, we would be on the brink of war with them right now.
I mean, forget allies. We'd be on the brink of war with them. Okay, so then number two, they say, oh, to merge our militaries, as you were talking about Section 219 and the technology, and so that they could take now soon to be $1.5 trillion of money we're spending on defense, and they get the entire benefit of that for free. They say that's all perfectly normal. We constantly are merging our militaries with allies. Is that normal?
We're merging our militaries with the closest allies that we have in the world, very specifically the British, the Canadians, the Australians, and the New Zealanders. You know, we've got good relations with the rest of the members of NATO, as one example. Israel's not in NATO. We have close relations with most European Union countries. Israel's not a member of the European Union. And then just a couple of weeks ago, the Israeli defense minister said publicly in an interview that Israel's next war would be against Turkey. Well, guess what? Turkey's a member of NATO. And if there were to be hostilities between Israel and Turkey invoked Article 5 of the NATO Charter, an attack on one is an attack on all. The United States would have to go to war with Israel to defend Turkey. Is the United States going to go to war with Israel? Of course not. And so what happens? The Israelis then successfully destroy NATO. Is that really the road we want to go down?
Not normal. Last one.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so dozens of Israeli spies were arrested after 9/11. I'm not asking about why they were arrested or what they did, but they were arrested and they were definitively Israeli spies. And then we just let them go free.
Yes.
Is that normal?
Yes. That actually is normal.
Oh, okay.
Normally, if let's say an American spy gets caught in a friendly country, you know, publicly we deny that this person is a spy. We deny, and then secretly, quietly, we go to the station chief will go to the head of the service and say, "Listen, he's my guy. You busted us. Do me a favor here and just let him go." And then quietly they'll let him go. They may make him cool his heels for a week or two, but eventually they're going to let him go. The reason why I'm speculating here. I believe that the reason why there were so many Israeli spies arrested in New York in the days after 9/11 is that the Israelis had advanced warning of 9/11 and didn't tell us. And that was a policy decision. We asked every ally in the world, we begged them if they had any sources inside Al-Qaeda, please help us, because we knew this massive attack was coming, but we didn't know when and where. We knew it was going to be giant. We just didn't know when and where. I believe that the Israelis did know that they had infiltrated Al-Qaeda, but they didn't tell us because they wanted us to attack Al-Qaeda. They knew that if we were attacked, that we would overreact like we did. We would launch a war that lasted 20 years. We would kill 2 million Muslims, which we did, and spend something like $6 trillion on national defense. You know, just like they knew chaos in Iraq was good for Israel, chaos in Libya was good for Israel, chaos in Syria was good for Israel, and now chaos in Iran is good for Israel. It hasn't changed since 9/11.
Cancer on our globe, honestly. So you just said something very provocative, something that I alluded to in one post on X once, and I didn't even allude to it as aggressively as you just did. I just noted the 5 Israelis who got arrested because they were seen celebrating the World Trade Center getting attacked. And I was like, whatever happened with this? Like, what is this? And there is evidence that the Israelis had foreknowledge. So can you get into that a little bit? Because I think it's important for members of our audience who might not know what that evidence is and why so many people have believed that the Israelis had foreknowledge.
Yeah, dozens of Israelis were Israeli citizens were arrested by NYPD officers on September 11th and in the days after September 11th, mostly for photography, for taking pictures of sensitive sites, taking pictures of the World Trade Center, things like that, or making comments about the attacks. And so they were picked up and they were held on suspicion of, something national security related. And finally, the Israelis came to us and said, listen, these are our guys. Just let them go, right? They're worried about you. They were worried about the World Trade Center. They didn't mean any harm. I think they were there just to sort of document what was happening because they knew it was going to happen. In the months before 9/11, I was working in the CIA's counterterrorism center at the time. And in the months before 9/11, the leadership of the counterterrorism center was scrambling. I happened to be entertaining a group of Middle Eastern intelligence officers one day. It was July the 6th, 2001. And Kofor Black, the director of the counterterrorism center, came into my meeting, shocked me. I jumped up at attention and I said, oh, gentlemen, this is Kofor Black. He's the director of the CIA's counterterrorism center. And Kofor minced no words. He said, something terrible is going to happen. We don't know what, we don't know where, we don't know when, but we know it's going to be an attack on a massive scale. And he went into some detail with them. And he said at the end of his little talk, I'm begging you, he said, if you have any sources inside Al-Qaeda, please help us. Well, the truth was we didn't have any sources inside Al-Qaeda. And that's why we needed help from Liaison. But they didn't, the other Arab countries didn't, the Gulf countries didn't, the Pakistanis either didn't or wouldn't tell us. And the Israelis just sat back and waited for it all to happen. And then came and said, we are one with you, America, we are with you. Well, they knew exactly what was going to